the Bahamas, heads of government of the Caribbean community concluded the 44th conference sessions, which sought to strengthen a joint market and economy for the region. Protesters stormed Suriname's parliament on Friday to demand the resignation of President Santokhi and Vice President Brunswick for failing to deliver on election promises. And hundreds of Syrian refugees affected by the earthquake are lining up at Türkiye's southeast border crossing, seeking to get back home after the Turkish government granted them a permission to leave for 6 months. In the Bahamas, heads of governments of the Caribbean community concluded on Friday the 44th conference sessions, which seek to strengthen a joint market and economy for the region, its flagship program. Discussions also seek to flesh out strategies related to COVID-19, other health issues, food and nutrition security, climate change and climate financing, as well as regional security. Also, participants in the 3-day event under the chairmanship of the Bahamas Prime Minister Philip Davis continue to press for a local solution to the unrest in Haiti. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reaffirmed on Thursday his country's commitment to finding a lasting solution to Haiti's problems and announced the dispatch of additional security personnel to assist the local government. The chairman of the 44th Caribbean Community Leaders Conference and Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Phil Davis, described on Friday the upcoming 50th anniversary of the bloc as a golden opportunity. The mechanism, comprising 15 member states and 5 associate members, was established on July 4, 1973 by the Treaty of Chaguaramas in Trinidad and Tobago.
Colleagues and friends, the 50th anniversary of CARICOM presents us with a golden opportunity. In celebrating the institutions and achievements of these 5 decades, the many peoples of our region should look back and rightly feel a sense of pride in all that has been gained and the value added to the region. But it also presents an occasion to look forward, to seize the opportunity to collaborate, to cooperate, and through our collective effort, build a stronger, more resilient, and more prosperous region.
Protesters stormed Suriname's parliament on Friday to demand the resignation of President Santokhi and Vice President Brunswick for failing to deliver on election promises. Thousands took to the streets of the capital Paramaribo in initially peaceful demonstrations against government austerity measures, which included the elimination of subsidies against a backdrop of high inflation. The protests reportedly escalated when demonstrators stormed Parliament's grounds, with some making their way into the building before being forced back by police. Other demonstrators started fires and looted city shops, many of which had closed as a precaution amid the unrest. The government of President Santokhi condemned the violence and said it had set up a task force to track down those responsible for the attack. The Suriname National Party left the government coalition on Wednesday after 2 of its ministers were instructed to tender their resignations. In Mexico, the National Bank of Data and Information on Cases of Violence Against Women, Bonavim, reported on Friday a record of 366,000 identified aggressors in 2022. Bonavim points out that the cases registered in the national database increased 41% compared to 2020 and warned that the actions to protect women are not enough. The aggressors identified are mostly men who exercise some type of violence against women in the year 2022. The data bank considered that the support programs and shelters for women in situations of violence, as well as public resources, are insufficient. The most commonly reported violence in Mexico is psychological violence, which tends to damage women's self-esteem, self-determination, and stability. The president of Brazil, Luis Inácio da Silva, announced on Thursday an increase in the minimum wage, the raising of the income floor for the poorest workers, and an update of up to 200% in university scholarships in a string of social reforms enacted by his government in behalf of the poor. Lula's announcements come after he described as shameful the basic interest rate of the economy of 13.75%, determined by the pro-Bolsonaro Central Bank's President Roberto Campos Neto, with the argument of meeting the 3.25% inflation forecast for this year. Lula announced the increase of the minimum wage to $252 starting in May and raising the non-taxable minimum income tax for those earning more than $505, two economic indexes that had been frozen since 2016 when Dilma Rousseff was impeached. The reforms that benefit the working sectors come back-to-back of the return of the My House, My Life, a housing program that started during Lula's first term and that provides housing infrastructure for the homeless and the poor. In Argentina, the ruling coalition Front for All denounced on Friday attempts to proscribe Vice President Cristina Fernández. The government coalition Frente de Todos advocated for the strengthening unity as a fundamental tool to avoid the return of the far right to Argentina through the disqualification of Cristina Fernández. After a meeting of more than 5 hours, members of the National Executive, a group of governors, political and union leaders agreed on the need to defend democracy and define common strategies for the October presidential elections. The coalition issued a document in which it stated the need to prevent the proscription of the vice president, pointing out that her leadership and electoral power cannot be taken away from her. Likewise, the document recognizes the complex economic and social situation, which requires concrete responses to meet the people's demands. In Peru, a decree imposed by the ultra-conservative government of the municipality of Lima, which restricts demonstrations in the historic center of the capital, goes into effect this Friday. The government of the municipality of Lima indicated that the measure will be carried out by the national police, who will guard the areas of the government palace, the municipal palace, the main squares, and the Congress of the Republic, among other areas. Despite the decree, the people continue to call for mobilizations in the capital, demanding the resignation of President Dina Boluarte, the closing of Congress, as well as constituent process. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The Turkish Interior Ministry updated on Friday the death toll after the earthquake in the country to 49,672. Together with that of Syria, the overall number of quake fatalities is now 43,360. Friday's figures is certain to increase as search teams retrieve more bodies amid the devastation caused by the powerful magnitude 7.8 earthquake, the deadliest disaster in Turkey's modern history. Even as the window for finding people alive shrank, rescuers removed a survivor from the rubble of a collapsed building in the district of Defne in hard-hit Hatay province, more than 11 days after the powerful earthquake struck. Other survivors have also been found lately after hope had begun to dwindle. Turkey's Vice President Fuat Oktay said on Friday that rescue efforts continued at fewer than 200 sites in the region. Hundreds of Syrian refugees line up at Turkey's southeast border crossing, seeking to get back home after 12 of their adopted country were destroyed by the earthquake. This week, Turkey allowed Syrian refugees with ID cards from one of the quake-hit provinces to leave for 3 to 6 months. Many of those queuing are traveling with their families and large amounts of luggage, waiting for border security personnel to let them through. Nearly 4 million Syrians have settled over the past 12 years in Turkey after fleeing a civil war that has devastated vast areas of their country and killed nearly 500,000 people and displaced millions more. According to the United Nations, the 11 Turkish provinces hit by the February 6 quake are home to 1.74 million migrants. On Friday, Russia's gas company Gazprom announced that they are aiming to become the largest gas supplier to China. Gazprom announced it has the ambition to connect gas infrastructure in European and Eastern regions on the occasion of the company's 30th anniversary. They released data about fields that are suitable for natural gas extraction and have reserve of about 35 trillion cubic meters. The company said that with such reserve, they could supply Beijing with considerable volumes. On the occasion of the celebration, Russian President Vladimir Putin praised Gazprom's world leadership regarding available extraction fields, volumes of natural gas production, and deliveries. In Bulgaria, 18 migrants have been found dead in an abandoned truck, the Interior Ministry said on Friday, as the Balkan nation struggles with an increase in illicit border crossings. According to the ministry, the vehicle was illegally transporting around 40 migrants hidden under some wood, and some of them still alive were taken to a hospital. The truck was located near the village of Lokorsko, 20 kilometers northeast of Bulgaria's capital, Sofia. A search was underway for human traffickers believed to have driven the truck and fled. Bulgaria is an EU member which serves as a gateway into the bloc, has been trying to tighten security to stop a rising number of people seeking to cross the border. Bulgaria has faced mounting accusations it is abusing people trying to cross over from Türkiye, with asylum seekers saying they have been pushed back, locked up, stripped, and beaten. In the United Kingdom, over 100 security and visitor services staff at the British Museum in London continue with the strike that began on February 13th, demanding fair pay. The striking museum workers belonging to the culture group of Britain's Public and Commercial Service and are demanding a fair pay given the current inflation rate, which stands above 10%. In this context, the offer of a 4% pay raise made by the museum was seen as widely insufficient. Member of the Labour Party John McDonnell took to Twitter to support the strike action, denouncing the historic institution was being operated on the basis of low pay for its professional and dedicated staff. British Museum Director Hadwig Fisher said in a statement that he respects the decision to strike, but expressed regret that family visits to the museum during the midterm break would be affected by the strike. The Spanish government acknowledged that over 6 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been destroyed because they had expired. Among the doses destroyed are the 4 brands that have been marketed in the country: Moderna, AstraZeneca, Janssen, and Pfizer. The executive stated that the process of destruction of the expired vaccine is part of the normal development of pharmaceutical product management, and reported that it is carried out by the entities designated by the health departments of each autonomous community. Although the Spanish government explains that the cost of acquiring the vaccines is subject to confidentiality, the prices revealed some time ago by the Financial Times allowed to estimate that the destroyed vaccines are worth around 93 million euros. Transportation unions in Italy held a nationwide 24-hour strike on Friday. The base trade union said the strike aims to reclaim the centrality of public transport and the role of workers in the sector, who are the main victims of privatizations. In the same way, they are also calling for an end to outsourcing and labor precariousness. Their demands include the reduction of the working week to an equal 35-hour week, the implementation of a national transport plan, and greater protection in terms of health and safety at work. Also, they demand that Italian legislation contemplate the crime of manslaughter at work, a minimum wage of 10 euros per hour, the elimination of atypical and precarious contracts, as well as regulations to prevent the monopolization of the market. The strike included buses, subways, streetcars, and even trains in the most important cities, where service was only provided temporarily between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. local time. Over 1,000 asylum seekers arrived in the last 24 hours on the Italian island of Lampedusa, the closest to the North African coast. The island's reception center is already crowded with more than 2,000 people, despite having a capacity for only 300. The group of people who were traveling in 34 boats had to be held by the finance guard and port authorities, while another boat with over 100 people was able to reach one of the coves of Lampedusa. These last arrivals, which add to those of the previous days, have led to over 2,000 people being overcrowded in the reception center, from where they will gradually be transferred to other locations. We have more news coming up for a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Heavy gunfire and explosions were reported on Friday at the police station in Karachi, Pakistan. According to the authorities, 7 people were killed, including 2 policemen, a paramilitary, and a health worker. Murtaza Wahab Siddiqui, spokesman for the provincial government of Sindh, pointed out that the operation also ended with the death of the 3 terrorists. Witnesses reported hearing a huge explosion from inside the station following smaller blasts and gunfire. The attack building houses the offices of some of the city's most senior police authorities. The spokesman for the armed insurgent group of the Pakistani Taliban formation, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, Mohammed Khurasani, claimed responsibility for the attack in a message shared by local media. Friday's attack comes after an attack on a mosque in the northwestern city of Peshawar in the early February left 100 people dead, mostly policemen. On Friday, the Arab League condemned the nationality revocation law passed by the Israeli parliament against Palestinians, qualifying it as unjust and racist. This regulation constitutes a dangerous escalation and ethnic cleansing, said Abu Ali, Undersecretary General for Palestinian and Occupied Arab Territories Affairs of the Pan-Arab body. Abu Ali affirmed that the international silence encourages Tel Aviv authorities to commit more crimes against the Palestinian people. This legislation consolidates the policy of collective punishment practiced by Israel, which is accompanied by an escalation of executions in the countryside, raids and house demolitions. More than 1.9 million Arab Israelis, nearly 21% of the total population, currently live in Israel. The African Union Summit will be held on February 18th and the 19th in Addis Ababa, capital of Ethiopia, following the deliberations of the 42nd Ordinary Session of the Executive Council of the Continental Organization. The Assembly of Heads of States and Government is set to consider and adopt several far-reaching decisions on various political and socio-economic areas to promote the welfare and quality of life of African citizens. One of its objectives is the pursuit of a continental free trade area that the organization has been pursuing for 17 years. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is designed to encompass 54 of the 55 member countries of the African Union, with the exception of Eritrea, representing a market of 1.3 billion people and a gross domestic product of $3.4 trillion. The entry into force of the pact would leave 50 million Africans out of extreme poverty within 5 years, with all the social, political, and human implications that category entails, as well as increasing the incomes of another 9%. Thousands of Palestinian prisoners staged a sit-in in Israeli prisons after Friday prayers in the 4th day of protests against punitive measures taken by the Israeli prison service. The Prisoners' Supreme Emergency Committee, which brings together representatives of all Palestinian factions, decreed the mobilizations in rejection of Tel Aviv's actions. The movement was launched on Tuesday in Nafma prison, where the authorities took retaliatory measures, including cutting off the hot water in the bathrooms in the middle of winter. The following day, protests spread to Raymond, Ofer, Megiddo, Gilboa, and Negev prisons, where inmates launched a campaign of disobedience, which includes boycotting security checkpoints, according to the Palestinian Prisoners Club. During a speech in Gaza to Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails, Osam al-Musaini, a leader from the resistance movement Hama, promised they will not be left alone.
Our heroes in prisons are free. They do not accept this humiliating treatment from Ben-Gvir or anyone. Therefore, they have announced progressive steps of struggle that begin today and lead to an open-ended hunger strike on the first day of the month of Ramadan. And we say to our prisoners, we are with you. We won't leave you alone, our beloved brothers. We'll remain united side and side prisons.
A United Nations agency warned on Friday that armed clashes in recent days in the northern Somali city of Las Anod have caused the displacement of some 60,000 people in Ethiopian territory. Referring to the situation of Somali refugees in Ethiopian territory, the spokesperson for the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Ola Sarrado Moore, stated that these people fleeing violence are living in a very difficult condition, lacking sufficient food and water and sleeping in the open. The recent violent situation was triggered by last week's request by a group of notables and clerics from the town of Las Anod to rejoin Somalia, while neighboring Puntland claims sovereignty over the area. The nation is considered a divided country without an effective central government and dominated by clans and warlords since 1991, when allied militias overthrew the then army-backed President Mohamed Siad Barre. we've come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.